Bryce Canyon. This has been a very fun adventure. And so what we have decided on this one is that we will do a couple parts. And this first part is going to be about the bus tour. So what I'd like to say about these buses, both in the Grand Canyon so far and here, we have experienced these shuttle buses that are just drop on, get off, and get back on. So you can spend as much time in any area as you want and hike and just view those areas, take your pictures. Some places have bathrooms, some have places to eat. And so this has been very fun. Plus, the big thing about this is that you don't have to find a parking space, which I saw people waiting for half an hour just to get into a parking space. If you're on the bus, you just pop on, pop off.
Takes you right into the park, takes you to the far end of the park, drops you off at that point. You get to see what's there. 10 minutes later, another bus comes by. You get back on the bus, go to the next spot. They do a tour overview, so you get a really good, thorough overview of the park, which, by the way, we're not going to do a lot of talking and commenting on the park because we're going to show you the video we took. It's not a quality video, but we think informationally it's valuable, and we're going to let the professional do the talking.
So we were really lucky to get on this lady's bus, and I am sorry, I cannot remember her name, but she gives a very professional overview of what to enjoy and see at the park, where to hike, the overviews and what's included. She was so knowledgeable and thorough that we decided to just let her describe it versus us telling you all about it. So take 10-15 minutes and learn about Bryce Canyon and stay in at the park. And enjoy.
Thank you.
It was founded 107 years ago by a gentleman named Reuben Syret, whose nickname was Ruby. He came just from the neighboring county. His ancestors came from England, but he was born here just north of us. When he was married, just only about a year, he had a new baby daughter, and he wanted to come and have a place where he could build a sawmill and home and have a farm and a ranch. And so he bought the parcels of land right here. This whole plateau that we'll be traveling on was best used for cattle grazing in the summer. It freezes and thaws often. In fact, that's why Bryce Canyon looks the way that it does, and I'll explain that a little better as we get closer. But he took a chance on it, bought the land, and was building a sawmill and home when a neighbor stopped by to welcome him into the area. In their conversation, the neighbor asked Ruby if he had seen Bryce's Canyon, and Ruby said, "No, what is it?" And he pointed that direction. And he says, "It's a big hole in the ground to the south you ought to see, and if you just look there, it looks like a forest." And so Ruby made a trip by horse and wagon ride, and it changed his life. He wanted to invite anyone and everyone to come and see this beautiful place and tell them to tell their friends. So he built the first lodging called Tourist Rest. It had big wooden doors, and you could carve your name as a guest registry. And what you see today, this all-inclusive resort, is now the fourth generation of his family as they continue to welcome guests from all over the world to see the beautiful hole in the ground to the south. They do have a nice set-down restaurant and diner here for faster food, a general store. They have horse rides, ATV, and just about anything else you need. But if you do need to go into the general store, they have a few grocery items as well. And they do have a Western dinner show nightly. And the big barn, we actually kind of passed, it was back at the corner. Ebenezer's Barn and Grill hosts the Bryce Canyon Wranglers. If you'd like a Western dinner show, it's fantastic. We're local and we go often. They open their doors for that at 7 o'clock. Our next stop will be at Ruby's Campground, and then we'll be heading out of this Ruby's Inn area. It was named a city about 2007, and they had to have 150 permanent residents to qualify, and just over 35,000 acres. We're 18 miles long by 5 miles wide. In comparison to Zion National Park, they have 150,000 acres. And so if you do their math, how many Bryce Canyons at 35,000 could go into 150?
At least 4.
Yeah, at least 4, 5. So we are fairly small in comparison. We're traveling on that unique plateau I mentioned, was used for cattle grazing. It has a word title that comes from the Paiute Native American language. It's pronounced Ponsagat. It means water of the beaver. And on this plateau, we are on top of everything in the region. We're considered the top youngest layer on the grand staircase that you might have heard about. Elevation changes in this area impressed early explorer and surveyor, and he labeled the drastic changes of the grand staircase. So we're on top with elevations over 9,000 feet at Rainbow Point. The middle step is Zion National Park, 4,000 feet lower. That's why it's 20 degrees warmer. And the bottom step is the bottom of the Grand Canyon. Notice the spike path along the side of the road. It starts at the Shuttle station and goes all the way up to Inspiration Point. It's 5 miles. It is accessible, so someone in a wheelchair can navigate it. So any slope greater than 2% or grade steeper than 5% was engineered out of it. So that's why it winds back and forth as the elevation changes about 800 feet or more. This is another reason that makes you happy you're on the shuttle. You're not waiting to get in, and then you're not circling parking lots. They've already closed 2 parking lots down until they can clear out, and they'll do that throughout the day. So you can enjoy these viewpoints at your leisure, hopping off and on the bus, knowing they're coming about every 10 minutes. The shuttle only goes one direction at the viewpoints. That will be helpful for you to remember because the park is one-sided. All the viewpoints are off the rim to the east. And so if this is your first time in the park, we encourage you to take a look at Bryce Point first. That's the farthest south we go. That's stop number 8. And then the shuttles do that very same loop. And you can take a look there. 10 minutes later, you can catch the shuttle to Inspiration Point, Sunset Point, the Lodge, and Sunrise. So that's how the shuttle works. We're running until the last shuttle leaves Sunset Point, for example, at 8:05. For this week, before the shuttles start cutting off an hour of the day, you can actually watch the sunset, which is about 7:30, and catch the last shuttle out of the park. So that only happens for the next few days, and then we start shortening the schedule. As we're traveling to Bryce Point and to the viewpoints, we get a lot of questions about the piles of wood that you can see throughout the forest. This is forest management called selective thinning. Conservation crews come in and they're cutting down some of the live trees. This helps open up the canopy of the forest. It's part of fire mitigation. The trees aren't growing the way they should when they're too close together, and fire can spread quickly when they're too close. They will burn these piles when there's snow on the ground again. They also, on a rotation, burn the understory very hot and fast. And this helps to reduce the fuel for lightning strikes. And we do get them. Thunder showers that come in July and August. We even had some in September. These meadows, you might see prairie dogs. The mounds of dirt are there. We know they're there. The Utah prairie dog has a white tipped tail and eyebrows. They are rodents. one that is warning the others with that sound is facing the predator. So when the prairie dogs come up out of the ground, they know where to look where the predator's coming from. I thought that was pretty interesting. This is stop number 7. This is a campground stop. It is not a viewpoint. You can walk to stop 11 if you're in a hurry to get to Sunset Point. Use a crosswalk and turn left on the bike trail, or walk across the street, catch the northbound shuttle. Stay on board for Bryce Point and Inspiration Point first.
How long you been doing this?
I have enjoyed doing this for 17 years.
You seem very good
I
at
hope
it.
I don't
She
sound
does.
like a recording.
No, Abby, I
no.
appreciate it.
It's,
Oh, my pleasure.
it's very
That's why I
informative.
keep coming back.
I know, guys.
This is going to be.
Here you go.
Oh, thank you. Is everyone you can tell us?
Are the rear doors clear?
Yes.
Thank you.
Sit on my lap. I'm good. Thank you, sir.
I've lived here, our family has, 5 generations, so we've got iron oxide running in our blood. Most of the trees that you're looking at here, though, on our way up to Bryce Point and here in this main amphitheater are the ponderosa pine. They're easily recognized. They have very long needles, up to 10 inches long. They're not diseased or dying. They're just losing some leaves or needles as they do. Every year they'll drop a few needles. The bark is what you can recognize the most, though. It has a reddish color, and that color intensifies with the age of the tree. So the older the tree, the redder the bark. I'm kind of jealous of a ponderosa pine. I was born a redhead. It didn't work for me. These are the trees that smell sweet, like butterscotch or vanilla. So today you can become an official sap smeller and see what you think. See if you think it smells like butterscotch or vanilla. I think it smells like butterscotch, and it does not taste like it smells. That's my tip for you for the day. No, you don't need to try it. The road that you can see continuing south as we made a turn on the junction, that is the scenic drive to Rainbow Point. You will have to do that in your private vehicle. There are no RV restrictions, so if you're getting around in an RV, you can take any size vehicle to the south end. That's where you'll see elevations 9,000 feet. On a clear day like today, you can see over 100 miles into the horizon, looking towards the Kaibab Forest that tapers into north rim of the Grand Canyon. Natural Bridge and Agua Canyon are just a couple of the many viewpoints that you can see on the way back. You know, the geological story of Bryce Canyon is pretty amazing, and it is quite unique. It is not a true canyon, only by its name. It has not been carved with a river running through it like the Colorado River carved the Grand Canyon. So our water story is different. Wherever you see this colorful soil and stone on the side of the roads, this red, pink, yellow, orange, this was all underwater. An ancient lake they called Lake Claron. It did not have a natural outlet, so the water would accumulate and evaporate. And this was 50 million years ago. So over time, a lot of sediment was deposited, silt and mud, a little sand, and a lot of calcium carbonate. So this is limestone. If you've been at Zion, Arches, Canyonlands, Lake Powell, even Capitol Reef, that's in the sandstone layers. They are millions of years older than we are and thousands of feet lower in elevation. That's why Zion is 20 degrees hotter than we are, because there's 4,000 feet elevation change. But that's sandstone, and we're on top of all of that on this limestone Claron layer. Well, the plates of the Earth shifted, a great uplift they call it, about 15 million years ago. That's not very long ago. chipping this place away like the slow motion rock wall, taking big walls of limestone, making narrow fins. Windows develop, and the top of that window collapses and leaves a brand new spire called a hoodoo. In the Paiute language, there's a word udu that means fear or wonder. Look out your right window. That's a glimpse of the eastern edge of this incredible place. 2,000 feet below us, the community of Tropic, Utah, on Highway 12, where Ebenezer Bryce homesteaded back in the 1870s, who this place was named after. You've got great options here at Bryce Point. You can walk to the main lookout, catch the next shuttle. You can also start the rim trail and enjoy this incredible amphitheater view step by step. It's a 1.5 miles on the moderate rim trail from here to Inspiration Point, and only
ถ้ามองอย่างแบบว่ามันทิ่มอยู่อะสวยเหมือนนะมันต้องตั้งอยู่ปะมันต้องตั้งขึ้นไหมตั้งลงดิตั้งขึ้นดิไม่อันนั้นคืออันนั้นคือไอ้นี่ไงไอ้ที่มันเงินใหญ่ๆหน่อยสิ
Because it's so recognized.
อ๋อผมเข้าใจแล้วไอ้แค่นี่ชื่อตามจินตนาการถ้าผมไม่มีใครตั้งก็ไม่รู้
We're right around 8,000.